Jonathan King 27, and I promised I'd tell you about Paul McCartney. Well, of course, I'd known Paul and all the Beatles since 1965 when I had my first hit record. In fact, slightly before, since, as I told you, I met Brian Epstein. And I got on fine with them all and got on very well with Paul as well as with the others. I think John was my best mate in the group, but I did get on pretty well with Paul. Anyway, I remember one day I arrived at a club, and I think it was the Scotch of St James. In fact, it was. And as I was going in to the club with my then girlfriend, who was a black lady, gorgeous black lady called Daisy May Williams. And Daisy and I were going into the club, and out comes Paul, and he said, "Oh, Jonathan, thank God I bumped into you. Have you got a piano?" I said, "Well, I don't have one in my house, but I do have one in my office." "Oh, I've got to get to one. Quick, quick, quick." So we ran out into the street, grabbed a taxi, and Paul's going dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum-de-dum, and he's obviously got a little song in his head. We get to Soho Square, where my office is, where, funnily enough, now Paul's office is. And we reach the front door, and I suddenly realise I don't have a key to the front door. "Well, we got to get in," he said. "Kick the door in." So we kicked the door in. Paul McCartney and I committed a crime together, with Daisy May Williams as an accessory. We then went up to the fourth floor where my office was, where I did have a key, and I let him in, and literally was running in panic, closed the door behind him, and Daisy and I sat outside, and we heard little bursts of songs and clinking clonklings coming out for about 2 hours. And then Paul came out and said, "Well, thank you for that, JK. I really, really needed that piano." And we went back to the club and went on partying. I never did find out the name of that song. I like to think it was Yesterday. Sadly, it wasn't. Anyway, Paul and I went on getting on fine, and he split from the Beatles. The Beatles started making solo records, and Paul made his solo records, which I have to say I absolutely hated. I mean, one of my least favourite records of all time was Mull of Kintyre. Anyway, I was driving down the King's Road in my open Rolls-Royce Corniche one day, and Paul and his wife Linda were driving down in their Rolls, and we stopped at traffic lights alongside each other, and my roof was down and his window was open. "Oh, hello, JK, how are you doing? We must have lunch. Let's have lunch next week. I'll give you a call," and all the rest of it. And I said, "Yeah, great." And then we drove off, and I have to admit I was feeling a bit dodgy about this. Paul's reputation was that he could be a bit two-faced. He's a Gemini and rather typical. My reputation was I'm always honest and straight and open about everything. But what I hadn't actually told Paul was that I'd just done an interview in that week's Melody Maker, in which I completely slagged off all his music and everything and said how dreadful I thought it was. Well, I hoped after bumping into him that they weren't going to print it quite as badly as I said it. Unfortunately, they did. It was a huge spread. And anyway, about 3 days later, my brother called me because he was working for me, and he'd gone into the office. I was in America by then. He said, "It's a very strange message on the office answering machine." And I said, "What is it?" He said, "Well, it's a Liverpudlian accent, and all it says is, 'Jonathan King's a cunt.'" And I think it's Paul McCartney's voice. Anyway, from then on, Paul and I were sort of having a feud. And it was very public in the papers because I would always slag off his new records, and he would then go on television and actually go on and on about me forever, saying how dreadful I was. And we really were sort of very famous enemies, although it was ridiculous because it was only about music, and I'm sure he hated my music, a lot of which I hated too. So the years go on, and then all this recent drama happened to me when I was falsely accused of certain crimes and convicted and locked up in prison and all the rest. I came out of prison after serving 3.5 years, and one of the first phone calls I got was from a friend of mine, Seymour Stein, the man who discovered, amongst other, the Madonna and the Ramones, and had been a friend since the early 60s. He's based in New York, ran Sire Records. And he said, "Jonathan, I must have breakfast with you and catch up on what's been going on." So he flew into London, which was sweet of him. He was a lovely man. And we had breakfast. And as I joined him in the restaurant, he said, "Don't look behind you, but there's a famous person." And I sort of slowly looked round, and sure enough, there was Paul McCartney having breakfast, surrounded by minders. And I told Seymour the story, and he said, "Oh, in that case, perhaps we better not greet him, but I do know him from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and it would be a bit rude and all that." Anyway, about 20 minutes afterwards, suddenly I sensed a person standing beside me because my back was to the main room. It was McCartney. And he said, "Hello, Seymour." I looked over there. I thought, I know that face. And then he looked at me and said, and I looked at you and I thought, oh, hello, Jonathan. I know that back. So I giggled and said, yes, Paul, you might notice there's quite a few knives sticking out of it. Do me a favour and pull them out on your way past. And he roared with laughter. And I have to say, for 20 minutes, we had a conversation and he could not have been nicer. He did not in any way mention the last 5 years and the drama and everything I'd been going through. He was just incredibly nice and giving me vibrations that he was very, very supportive and on my side without actually saying anything about it. And then off he went. And Seymour was completely taken aback and he said, I can't believe I've just witnessed that after what you just told me. And I said, well, I have to admit, Seymour, neither can I. Paul McCartney has just gone up about 6 miles in my estimation. If he'd wanted to put the boot in, he really could have put the boot in, even with just a casting line or a look on his face or something, you know, quite small. He was so superb. And I've got to say, from that moment onwards, I will support Paul McCartney whatever he does. I may still not like his music, but I have to say that man is an absolute gentleman who could have done or said anything he wanted, but chose not to. Well done, Paul McCartney.